Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Eitaikyo Memorial Service for today. The Eitaikyo Service is a memorial service for all of the people who have passed away in our long history at Higashi Honganji in Los Angeles, and many of those names are recorded in the Eitaikyo, what we call the Daicho, or the book that has all of the names. Today, we're very, very fortunate to have a guest speaker, Reverend Yasushi Kigoshi. And he was here in Los Angeles in October, and he gave us his Dharma talk at that time. But he'll be going back to Japan in March, and so we made sure that we would bring him down one more time for our Eitaikyo service. And so we're really so happy to have him here. I was going to mention in my comments at the museum where we have our general meeting and luncheon, and the other day Irene Ota, who is our Fujinkai president, and this year she'll be our board of directors vice president. But at any rate, I've known Irene since we were kids, and we were at the old temple together. And she asked me if Reverend Kigoshi is related to the Kigoshi-sensei who was here back in the 50s and 60s. And I immediately said, of course he is. He is the second son of Reverend Tatsuru Kigoshi, who was a minister at the old Los Angeles temple in Boyle Heights. And then he went up to Berkeley, and he served most of his time here in Berkeley. And so Reverend Kigoshi was actually born in Berkeley. And even though he lived all of his life in Japan, well, most of his life in Japan, he's actually an American like us. And so we're really, we feel a very close kinship to him. His older brother, I mean, he probably doesn't want me to mention his older brother here, but he is currently serving as the Socho, the chief administrator of our entire Shinshu Otani, our Higashi Honganji organization. Reverend Kigoshi had served as the president of Otani University, which is the main university of Higashi Honganji, for 6 years. And he's been on a sabbatical here for a year. He'll go back to the university, and he'll resume teaching again, and for probably a number of years, because he's younger than I am. But at any rate, we're really happy to have him here, and he'll be speaking in English and Japanese. So, Kigoshi-sensei, onegai moshiagemasu.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yasushi Hari Kigoshi. I have a middle name because I was born in the United States. And thank you very much for inviting me again. And it's very happy for me to be here now. Today, I would like to talk about the problem that Buddhism in Japan is currently facing. It is about secularization of Buddhism, seizokuka of Buddhism. The secularization is a situation in which the status of religion has declined, and many people are not so interested in religion anymore. In the case of Japan, the word secularization or religion means, of course, Buddhism. This issue has been recognized in European Christianity for more than 40 years. An old survey reported that in the 1950s, the percentage of Germans who were Christians was over 80%. But a 2003 survey showed that the percentage was less than 25%. Today, the phenomenon is thought to be even more advanced. And there are probably even fewer Christians in Germany. Perhaps This trend is not unique to Germany. When traveling in Europe, we often see churches that are closed and others which are for sale in many places. It is a situation in which many people no longer want to belong to a Christian church, no longer want to listen to its teachings. The cause of secularization are discussed in various detail, such as the problem of education and the change in values based on it. But ultimately, the cause is that everyone is now able to think about human existence and its future without the concept of God. The religion sensibilities of the general Japanese public are in a similar situation. Many Japanese consider themselves as non-religious people, and no one genuinely believes that religion is important. In the first place, young people don't have the opportunity to be exposed to religion, including Buddhism. Most people don't have the opportunity to learn about Buddhist teaching. And more, they don't think that an opportunity has arrived when the Dharma talk begins in the temple like this. They think that a kind of calamity has arrived. I wonder if you all feel the same way now. I'm sorry. And now, live at the Higashi Honganji Temple in Berkeley, and I see many people, adults and children alike, coming in and out of the temple and participating in its various events. There are not many people to be sure, but there is a religious sincerity in American Buddhist temples that is rarely seen in Japanese temples anymore. In this respect, I strongly feel that American Buddhism is more alive than Japanese Buddhism. At any rate, there are also various discussions on how to think about the crisis of the disappearance of Buddhism from Japan. If Buddhist thought and culture disappear in Japan, what will happen to the next generation? If it will have no impact, then Buddhism should disappear. And if humanity will be better off by its disappearance, then Buddhism should simply disappear. Some rationalists believe that humans would be better off without religion. Some logical religious scholars also said that the day will come when we will not need religion, and that will be a cultural improvement of mankind. Of course, there are many Buddhist scholars who are critical of this opinion. One day, a symposium on this issue was held at Otani University. Our university invited a scholar who had published a book claiming that a world without religion is a human necessity. The other speaker was a Buddhist scholar from our university. I attended as a member of the audience, and the scholars arguing for a world without religion completely won the debate. The Buddhist scholar could not successfully explain why Buddhist teachings are necessary for human beings. In this atmosphere, one complex religious issue arose in Japan. So resulted in a problem that further weakened religious education in Japan. The problem was related to the Gassho and Itadakimasu. You know Gassho and Itadakimasu. Gassho is, of course, the action of putting hands together, while Itadakimasu is the expression of one's feeling of thank you for this meal. This is an ancient Japanese custom. and most Japanese do this before eating. This custom is acquired even before one learns to eat meals by oneself, usually from around the age of 1 or 2. Of course, they also learn at the same time to say "Gochisousama deshita" after dinner. I don't know for sure, but it is maybe tradition common in the Japanese-American community here in United States. One day, however, a parent at the junior high school objected to this traditional practice. In Japan, this practice is so routine that many schools also do this before and after lunch break. In most schools, lunch is taken in the classroom with classmates. Therefore, before lunch, the leader of the day gives the command "Gassho," and then everyone says "Itadakimasu" together. However, one student's father claimed that this practice should be discontinued at school. He said this is a Buddhist style and that it is illegal to teach religious matters in public schools. The father's family moved from the city of Osaka, big city, to a rural town in Toyama Prefecture. This town has a strong connection with Buddhism. Toyama Prefecture has a strong connection with Buddhism, especially Pure Land Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu. I spent my childhood in Kanazawa City in Ishikawa Prefecture, which is right next to Toyama Prefecture. In these areas, there are still many Jodo Shinshu followers today. When I attended elementary school, there were several members of the Jodo Shinshu temple among my classmates as well as teachers. Of course, there was no doubt that everyone at school would say "Gassho" or "Itadakimasu." However, a father of a transfer student from the city criticized this custom. I'd like to discuss this issue in more detail. One day, the father's son brought some materials from his new school. In there, the father discovered a strange rule of this school. At this school, before lunch, the leader of the day would give the command "Gassho," and then everyone would say "Itadakimasu." The materials described the role of such student. After reading this, the father wrote a letter to the principal of the school. He said, "I am a parent of a new student. At this school, when it is time for lunch, the leader of the day calls out the command "Gassho," and then everyone says "Itadakimasu." However, these acts are illegal attitude in public schools because it is a Buddhist style of prayer. The Constitution states that no one shall teach religious content to children in schools. Instead of "Gassho," we should say, "Now we will begin our lunch, Itadakimasu." And after they finish, "Now we finished our lunch, Gochisousama deshita." Japan is becoming increasingly internationalized, and freedom of religion must be protected. Please discuss this and stop the "Gassho" at school. That is what he wrote to the school principal. Certainly, it is illegal to teach religious matters in Japanese public schools. According to the general understanding, this rule exists to protect religious freedom. In Japan, freedom of religion is protected by the constitutions. Everyone can believe in any religion they wish to believe in. So at the same time, to protect this freedom of religion, certain religious education is prohibited, especially in public schools. Upon receiving this letter, the principal was puzzled as to what to make of this claim. As mentioned earlier, this area has a strong relationship with Pure Land Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu. So Gassho is very natural action and part of daily life. In particular, if a person does not do Gassho before eating, he or she is not treated as a normal cultured person, and his or her parents' common sense could be questioned. The principal did not understand the intent of the claim and was confused as to how to resolve this issue. The principal held a faculty meeting on this issue. However, they could not solve this problem either, because for them too, it is very natural to do Gassho before eating, and they could not find an answer to this question. Therefore, the principal presented this issue to the city's Board of Education, Kyoiku Iinkai. Of course, it was a very natural practice among the members of the school board. And even within that school board, the discussion became continuous. Finally, the issue was brought to the Toyama Prefectural Assembly, Toyama Kengikai. As a result, the opposition of one transfer student further became a major topic of discussion at the Toyama Prefectural Assembly. The issue became so widespread that the local newspaper picked up on it extensively. And unfortunately, because the local newspaper presented this issue and the discussion spread throughout the entire educational community in the area, Toyama Prefecture. But of course, the situation was the same. Opinions were divided between two sides to value the tradition of showing gratitude or to abide by the law to quit enforcing religious customs. In general, responsible institutions don't want to take responsibility when it really matters. It was the same with the Prefectural Assembly and the school board. The conclusion was to leave it to the judgment of each school site. This was the worst possible guidance for each of the school principals. Initially, it was a problem of one junior high school. However, after then, it was no longer just an issue for one school. All of the public schools in the area had to decide how they would handle this issue. Each school had to decide whether to do this or not. After this guidance from the Board of Education, many schools unfortunately decided to stop Gassho before and after school lunch. Traditions that had been common in most schools before were discontinued in many of those schools. The father who objected at first was from Osaka. That area is next to Kyoto, where my university, Otani University, is located. Of course, many students come to our university from Osaka. So one day, I asked my students if they did Gassho before having lunch together at school, before coming to the university. Fortunately or unfortunately, about half of the class answered that they did not do Gassho. At that time, I asked a female student who came from Osaka every day. She said that when she was in junior high school, they didn't have to do gassho before school lunch. I couldn't imagine how they would start eating without gassho. So I asked her, "How did you know when to start?" So she said, "The teacher said, 'Ready, begin.'" This is gassho. Ready, begin. At that time, everyone laughed. Of course, me too. So I continued to ask, "How did you stop the lunch? If you start, ready, begin. How do you stop?" So she said, the teacher said, "Stop. Yoi, hajime, and yame." We all laughed. However, I was privately disappointed that if schools in this area do this in the future, all people in this area will start their meals with "ready, begin," and end with "stop." No gassho or no itadakimasu. I thought this was a change in the human mind rather than a change in custom. One newspaper reporter wrote a book on this issue of gassho in school. He collected data, conducted several interviews, and wrote a book about the education of Japanese religious practices. After the book was published, I also became interested in this issue and had asked many people about it. One day, when I was in Toyama Prefecture for a lecture, I asked the audience about this issue. Of course, they were well aware of this issue. They were attending a Buddhist lecture, and so most of them were sorry to see this custom disappear from their schools. However, one participant shared with me a continuing discussion about this issue. In Toyama Prefecture, this was discussed in many schools. At that time, one young mother said that not only gassho but also itadakimasu need not be said at school. Itadakimasu is an expression of gratitude for a meal. She insisted that the children don't even have to say itadakimasu at school. Do you know why she took that position? Can you understand her opinion? Can you imagine why the young mother said, "My child does not have to say thank you for the food anymore"? The reason why she said why is, "My child has already paid for the food. Therefore, the food already belongs to the child. We don't need to express gratitude for something that is already ours." This is her reason. The participant who told me this story was laughing at the time. So it was clear that the participant was uncomfortable with this young mother's statement. What do you all think of the young mother's opinion that she doesn't want her children to say itadakimasu before lunch? Do you understand her position, or do you feel uncomfortable with it? Certainly, regularly, the young mother is maybe correct. Since the food has already been paid for, the food belongs to her or her child. In theory, she is correct. She is not breaking the law. But perhaps, fundamentally, she is wrong. When considering the education of children, I must say that her thinking is completely wrong. But I think it is very difficult to give a perfect response to the young mother. I don't know what the conclusion was in the school, but I can easily imagine that the principal and teachers struggled for a long time to resolve this strange claim. What must we adults educate the next generation about? What must we pass on to them as important? Politics, economics, activities, and the social structure, the legal way of life based on them are important things that must be taught. But is that enough? Is religious intelligence and behavior no longer necessary there? Today, let's just think about Gassho and Itadakimasu. At first, the father claimed that Gassho is a Buddhist act. Gassho is a Buddhist act. He may have thought that Gassho was an expression of a Buddhist prayer. However, that is not true. We Buddhists do Gassho on a daily basis, but it was originally an ancient Indian cultural expression that was converted to Buddhism. We introduced this custom from ancient Indian culture. In India, many people, not only Buddhists, do Gassho on a daily basis. For example, they greet each other with Gassho and say Namaste. You know about this, Gassho and Namaste. Namaste means Namu Amida Butsu Nam. It's same meanings. Gassho and Namaste. Why do they greet people with their hands together like this style? We Japanese and maybe Americans may not really understand the meaning of this act. However, especially in India, they can understand the meaning very well because they fully understand the difference between the role of the right hand and the left hand. The Indian people recognize the right hand as the pure or clean hand, and they also recognize the left hand as an impure hand. One pure hand and one impure hand. We Japanese don't have this perception, nor do Americans. But the people of India clearly recognize this and use each hand for different purposes. If you are traveling to India, you should first learn how to use your hands in India. I have visited India several times with my students, and when I do, I tell them the Indian way of using hands, which I learned when I first visited India. There, the left hand is considered impure, and one should never pay for goods in a store with the left hand. Paying with the impure left hand is very bad manners, and this means disrespecting the other person. Even if you are left-handed, you should never pat the head of a cute baby with your left hand like this. I'm sure those parents will be angry. The most obvious example is that in India, they use their pure right hand when they eat. Basically, they use only their right hand when eating. Originally, Indian people did not use forks, knife, or spoons when eating, but used their hands to put the food in their mouth, like this. This right pure hand is used for this purpose. What about the left hand? I have never actually seen this, but I have heard that people use their left hand when using the toilet, bathroom. The left hand is used to wipe one's bottom with water after using the toilet. They use their left hand. With this tradition, you would never bring a meal directly to your mouth with the hand you use in the bathroom. Knowing this tradition, you would not allow others to pat your child with their left hand in India. In Japan and the United States, people use the same hand for eating and using the toilet, which would be seen as unclean by the Indian people. Now, you understand the meaning of pure and impure hands. So Gassho, or putting hands together, is a special act of bringing two hands together that are perceived to have very different qualities. It means that the impure and the pure become one. It is said to indicate an attitude of expressing all of oneself outwardly as it is. Gassho refers to all of oneself. We have pure heart, and sometimes we act as pure human beings, but at the same time, we have an impure heart deep down. So sometimes we behave very badly toward others. We have both a good and a bad side, a pure and an impure nature. Therefore, when we put our hands together, it means to display the entirety of our being. Gassho means to show the other person in its entirety, just as you are. In other words, when we say Itadakimasu, we put our hands together, we are expressing with our whole body our gratitude for the food in front of us. Indeed, to the rational average person, it is a kind of strange behavior. As a young mother said, they express their gratitude for what is theirs. But the act is not done for the food in front of them. It is an expression of gratitude for the unseen things behind the foods. Although they face what they can see, they are actually expressing their respect for what they cannot see. Later, a prominent Pure Land scholar had this interesting comment about the Gassho controversy in Toyama Prefecture. He said, "Today, schools, students learn only what they can see. The object of education in empirical science is only what we can actually see between ourselves, what we can concretely grasp as reality. But what is more important for us is what we cannot see or we cannot touch." I believe that the religious teachings are about these invisible things. I think this comment is very important for us. We see many foods in our daily lives. What we teach in school is what these are, how they are made, what the nutrients in this food are, and so forth. Students then learn about the distribution and value of the food. These are certainly important knowledge for our society. This education is important for the young generation. On the other hand, however, we humans must teach that importance of the invisible. The fact that the amount of effort and heart put into a single meal is invisible. The truth that the piece of food in front of us continues to sustain our lives is also invisible. The true faith that my life is sustained by the connection of all life is also never seen. What we see is actually only a small part of the picture. We are supported by much more than that. We are supported by many things we cannot see and touch, and money never can cover them. In Japanese school, we have been taught this by putting our hands together and saying Itadakimasu. In these things are lost in the school setting, children will grow up without learning these important teachings. Japan will create a completely different kind of human society in which people don't have to express their gratitude as long as they are paid for. What we see is only a small part of the world and the reality. What we don't see is much greater. And we are supported by those invisible things, the big things that money cannot buy. I only hope that we don't lose our culture of respect, gratitude, and devotion to those invisible things. Finally, let us consider the Gassho as follower of Pure Land Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu. Gassho in front of a gravesite in front of Amida Buddha principal image is the same thing we have been considering today. It is an expression of our attitude of respect and devotion to the object. To do Gassho is to honor the object with one's whole beings. When we hold our palms together, we are looking at the gravestone or the statue of Amida Buddha in front of us. But we are not expressing our gratitude to them. We are expressing our gratitude for the unseen things beyond them. When we do Gassho in front of the ancestors' graves, we admire their precious hard-working lives, which we will never see or know. Through this tradition, we encounter their lives again and accept their footprints as part of our own lives with gratitude. In particular, today is the day for Eitaikyo, Eternal Memorial Service. It is a day to accept the thoughts and feelings of our invisible ancestors and people from the past. They have created our lives and our world. We accept their joys and sorrows as pure wishes for us and respectfully join our palms together. In Buddhism, the deceased are also called Buddhas. In this way, we join our palms to the Buddhas, Shobutsu. The same meaning is also true when we put our hands together in front of the statue of Amida Buddha. This is an act of accepting the teaching of the Buddha and the pure wish of Amida Buddha, which we cannot see or know in our daily lives. Even though they are invisible, the teachings and pure wish urge us to recognize our self-centered foolishness. They continually call us to stop our foolish struggles. These are invisible to our eyes, but these invisible pure wishes are very important for us human beings. Shinran said in his writing, "My eyes being hindered by my blind passions, my eyes being hindered by my blind passions, I cannot perceive the light of Amida Buddha that grasped me. Yet the great compassion of the Buddha without tiring illuminate me always. Gassho in front of the Amida Buddha is to adjust our attitude to this invisible compassion. We know that the visible world is important, but we also have to know that the invisible world is important to our lives, especially to our future. When we do Gassho in front of the statue, we are expressing our intention to take refuge in the invisible, pure wish of the Buddhas, who tells us to look deeply into ourselves and think about how we should live. I believe that we, the Buddhist Sangha, have a special responsibility to pass on this religious tradition to the next generations. We should all work together to ensure that this important Buddhist tradition of Gassho for the invisible does not disappear from Japan and the United States. Thank you very much.